opening conversations and furthering conversations and bringing more women into the conversations.
Welcome to the Well with Cannabis podcast, a show dedicated to telling the life-changing stories of those who live well with cannabis, all while teaching you how to do the same. Meet your host, Emily Kyle, a registered dietitian nutritionist turned certified holistic cannabis practitioner. Emily changed her life for the better with the help of the cannabis plant, and now she is committed to helping others do the same. Tune in each week to hear heartwarming stories and gain the knowledge you need to feel connected, inspired, and supported on your own cannabis journey. Whether you're a new cannabis consumer or a lifetime lover, you'll benefit from these uplifting tales of real-life journeys that will show you how you too can live your best life well with cannabis.
Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share a note on potentially sensitive content. The episodes on the Well with Cannabis podcast are created for adult audiences only. We will at times cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, mental illness, sex, drugs, alcohol, psychedelics, and the obvious use of plant medicine. Explicit language may be used occasionally. Please refrain from watching or listening to the show if you're likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. The information on this show is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. If any of the content on this podcast has brought up anything for you, please reach out or speak to a professional or someone you trust.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Well with Cannabis podcast. And I am super excited to be here with our guest today. We have Miss Erica DiPaolo, and she is going to talk all about her journey with cannabis, what she's doing now as an artist, and kind of everything lifestyle in between. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Hi, Emily. Hi, everybody. I'm nervous, but I'm very excited.
Please don't be nervous. I am really, really happy you've been brave to show up here today and tell your cannabis story. Do you want to start at the beginning? You said you've been using cannabis for your whole adult life, but it's not always been a smooth ride. So let's talk about that.
Well, honestly, I started in high school, like probably most people, but it clicked something for me, and I have a creative brain, and so my mind goes in a million directions. And I didn't at the time recognize that's kind of what drew me to it. But fast forward to all the guilt I carried all those years for using cannabis. And of course, there was only smoking it. I didn't know anybody that could cook with it. Any of that was not available in my little town. And I kind of want to like jump ahead now. And I find myself saying, I've been waiting 40 years for this. And my son is in the industry, and it has helped my kids immensely. And it's such a swing from the shame. And honestly, I'll tell you, and you can edit as you please, when I was pregnant with my daughter, which is my second child, I had terrible, terrible morning sickness, and I was losing weight. And I tried everything and a little bit of cannabis, and I got back on my feet. And after the 3 months, I didn't smoke it for the 3 months, but it really got my appetite back. I was sleeping again, and she's fine. She's perfect. She's better than perfect. It's just such a swing from the shame to now being able to be such an advocate and say it loud and proud. And I'm in a medical state, so we're medically legal here.
Oh, that's got to feel so amazing. And I'd love to talk more about the mom guilt, because I have a lot of women who come to me and they say, either I want to try cannabis or I know it helps me, but I cannot get over the guilt that I've placed on myself because of what society thinks, even though it makes me a better mom. And for a lot of people, I really, really struggle with that. And I'd love to talk more about how you overcame that.
So that's a very big one. When I had some infertility issues. And when I finally had my son, when I found out I was pregnant, I stopped. No, actually a little bit before that. So after he was born, after a couple of months, and I nursed him, in the afternoons, I would go and smoke a little weed and start dinner. And it absolutely, I feel like it's like sleep is for the body. this can be for the brain. And just to be able to get out of not thinking about laundry, the mess myself, the shower I didn't get to take. I could just stop and just put on music and be in the moment, make dinner, be inside my head. Was very, very valuable, I think. And I didn't know so many other moms were doing the same thing.
Oh my gosh, I know. And that's why I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because you probably have so many friends using cannabis who just didn't know you used cannabis, so no one ever talked about it.
And that's what I found.
Yeah. And then you find out other people do, and you're like, oh my gosh, like we could have been bonding this whole time.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I think I'm so glad that you said that, because for a lot of us, especially in our like busy lifestyle today, we have a lot of pressure on ourselves to be present and to be present with our children, no matter how much time we have, and make sure that the quality time is really quality when we're spending it. And for a lot of people without cannabis, that's really hard to do. You're worrying about laundry. You're worrying about the shower you didn't take. There's so many things. Yes, where you just can't quiet your mind to be present and to enjoy that time. And for so many women who finally experience that, thanks to the help of cannabis, it's like, oh my gosh, I understand now what it means to be present and to sit with my kids and to truly just enjoy and to not feel like I have to. Yes. And to like enjoy their presence without being like, oh my gosh, look at the laundry over there. I have to go do that right now. You're focused on your kids.
Over-momming them. You can kind of sit back and enjoy watching them just be kids. It kind of reminds you then again of you being a kid. It's all opening up the brain. And something else too, though, I think that has really changed. Now I cook with it, which I have a machine, like it's not the Levo, I have the magical butter. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, being afraid of smoking, putting things in your lungs, that's another door that has opened that I think is really tremendously helpful.
Absolutely. Now, did you have a transition from smoking to edibles, or talk a little bit more about how you discovered edibles and how they could help with that?
Well, I've always heard of them. And until it became a legal state here, I didn't know how to find it. I didn't know anything about it. And I'll back up for just a second. My son, during the whole lockdown, he has some spectrum things, and he is now almost 23. But when he was about 20, his anxiety was through the roof with this, and he kind of broke down to me one night, and I said, do you want to give this a try? And he said, I really do. Oh. And so he smoked a little bit of weed, and he cried and laughed and cried and laughed for 2 hours. And then I popped a chocolate covered cherry in his mouth, and it was just like a transforming experience. Fast forward, he became a patient consultant, like as soon as he was 21. So he became a patient consultant. Now he works for the only cultivator in our city. But once I got my card, actually somebody made me a hot chocolate bomb once, and that was my first edible. And I've been chasing that ever since, though. I've been chasing that ever since because I think I have a very high tolerance. And I don't know, from what I'm understanding, that's genetic. I'm not sure.
There's a lot that is unknown about the world of edibles and why everybody processes them so differently. There's a subset of the population who A, will never feel the effects of edibles, or B, need an extremely high dose to feel the effects. Mm-hmm. And some preliminary research I found super interesting. They were talking about digestive enzymes, because I guess the enzymes are needed to break down the THC into 11-OH-THC, which produces the intoxicating effect. And if those enzymes aren't there, then the THC just passes through and doesn't cause any effect. So I would love it if anybody listening with millions of dollars could research this for us, because I feel like I wish we had better answers, because if you can't get the relief you're looking for with edibles, you're back to smoking.
Right.
All right. So now I have to ask you, you have been using cannabis, and you said that you have fibromyalgia. And I know that there are so many people who have found that cannabis is their only relief with fibromyalgia. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your experience with that, if you're willing.
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with that in my very early 20s, but the pain that I had, started long before the car accidents and, just those, whatever causes that. And I will say that is where the edibles really work. But it aids in the sleep. And I've always been very honest, even before times, with my doctor about my usage. And she was very much an advocate and said that in her research, and she is actually a prescriber now in our state, but she believed that it was good for fibromyalgia. And when I wasn't able to have it, there's been times when I've had to get a job and take a test. It absolutely interrupted my sleep. It interrupted my day. The pain was distracting from day-to-day chores.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 1,000,000%.
I'm so glad you found relief. Yeah. That's what a lot of people say. The most frustrating part about fibromyalgia is that there is just no really good option out there to help take care of all the symptoms that come along with it and the pain. And for a lot of people, from that constant pain, that chronic lifestyle, and to have something that can kind of touch on a little bit of everything, the pain, the depression, the sleep, cannabis really is a beautiful solution for a lot of people. So if you are listening, if you have fibromyalgia or somebody in your life who does, cannabis is actually a viable solution. And I believe it's Dr. Ethan Russo who proposes that fibromyalgia is one of 3 conditions that could potentially be related to an endocannabinoid deficiency, showing hence why cannabis works so well to help alleviate the symptoms of it. So thank you for sharing that with us, because for anybody who is living with fibromyalgia and living in pain, to know that there could be something out there that you could try, I just want you to have the opportunity to try it.
Yes. And I think that, if I can say that, I think that is another use for the word full spectrum, because even the distraction from every symptom from that pain is addressed with cannabis.
That's amazing. I mean, truly. And then when you think about it, cannabis has so few side effects compared to if you were taking a medication for all of the various ailments.
Right.
On top of the side effects, cannabis is just like a nice, easy solution.
And it's a single ingredient.
Yes.
Yes, not multiple medications. It's one thing.
And if it actually works, because a lot of people take the medications and find that they're not working, if you can find something that actually works, like I just hope everyone gives it a try.
I do too. And I advocate that to my friends, and they have found the same.
How does it look today? You've been a lifetime consumer. Do you talk about it freely with your friends and anybody else in your life, or do you still feel that stigma?
Well, I'm because I'm an artist by trade, I have incorporated into my artwork. And so it is on my social media. It is part of my decor in my home. It's definitely incorporated into my life. And I can't believe how easily that happened, how easily the transition from the shame to it just being an everyday thing.
Oh,
it's miraculous.
That's so nice. And let's now talk about your business and working as an artist, because for so many people, cannabis unlocks this creativity that we never knew existed. Explain a little bit about your artistic career and how cannabis plays a role in that.
Well, I've always done some type of art. And I think that certainly cannabis opened my mind to different mediums throughout my life. And different projects, different people. And it definitely helps me get into the headspace to do that kind of work, to let the day go. I usually work that kind of work at night when it's quiet, and it's invaluable. I can still do artwork when I'm not using cannabis, but it certainly isn't the same. It's more of it's different kind of work. It's a different kind of work, and I don't like it as much.
Oh, I'm so glad that you found something, though, that not only helps your health, but also helps your creative process as well. That's a beautiful thing. And I feel like a lot of times in cannabis, we talk about the obvious. It can help with pain. It can help with anxiety. But then there's all these extra special things that we discover that it helps in our lives, whether it be bringing out that creative side or these other special things that just make it such a perfect plant.
Right. It is the perfect plant. That is it, absolutely. It's the perfect plant.
So moving forward, how has the conversation been with your children? We talked a little bit about your son. You said now you're all open. It's easy to discuss at home. How does that look for you?
It's amazing. My daughter is 18 now, so she also enjoys cannabis, has her card, her medical card. And I've actually had, because I love to cook and now they're grown and my son's out of the house, sometimes I'll make a cannabis dinner and we'll make a canna carbonara and he and his girlfriend will come over and my daughter will have some friends over with their cards. And, it's a lovely way to spend an evening, especially if you can be outside and again, the edible, I think I call it layering, when it's a long episode. So that has been wonderful. They're both just doing so well in their lives at 18 and 22 plus. And I give a good amount of credit to that. And I think the fact that I was the one to share that with them, luckily, because it was a pandemic and they weren't going to school.
Right.
That was a bond there.
Yes.
And it was really an open to conversation. And I feel like we would never have secrets because this is such it's been an amazing, perfect time for it to happen for my household.
That sounds so perfect because as a mom, you get the satisfaction of seeing your children do well, be well, feel well. But then it brings you closer together too. It improves your relationship. And then to be able to have cannabis carbonara dinners together, it just sounds like, it sounds so nice.
It is.
That is so sweet.
Something to look forward to there.
Absolutely. There are so many people who are really afraid to have the conversation with their children or their parents, depending. And I think if everybody approaches it like you do and honestly and compassionately, it could be a beautiful thing in the end. Everybody could be having carbonara suppers together.
Well, I will say they didn't know when they were younger. And they actually did say, because I had a little powder room off of my bedroom, my master bedroom. And they always thought it smelled funny in there. And that's what it was. Right. They didn't know then. But when they get older, they certainly did. Yeah.
It's the beautiful thing about your children getting older is having more adult relationships and things that you can enjoy together. And I'm so happy that you all just get to enjoy cannabis together. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's fun.
I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to ask you the same 4 questions I ask all of my guests. Are you ready?
Sure.
In your life to date, what are you most proud of?
My kids, for sure, and then my work.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think your life would look like without cannabis?
Oh, black and white. Absolutely black and white. It's in color. Cannabis puts things in color. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. That is such a perfect way to describe that for somebody. If you could go back 10, 20, or even 30 years ago and give yourself a piece of cannabis advice, what would it be?
Don't feel guilty. Embrace it and relax.
Perfect. And to wrap it up, the last one, if you could be remembered for just one thing in the cannabis space, what would it be?
Conversations, opening conversations and furthering conversations and bringing more women into the conversations.
Yeah. Well, I think we did all of that here today. I am so thankful and grateful for you sharing your experience and how it's improved your life and where you're at today. I'm so happy for you and your kids and your family. Any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
I'd say just trust yourself and trust it and try it. Give it a shot.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Erica. And random question, if anybody is interested in your cannabis artwork, is there somewhere they could find it?
Well, I'm in boutiques and stores around the country, but I do have an Etsy shop. It's Erica DiPaolo Designs.
Awesome. I am going to link to that so people can enjoy that as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet.
Congratulations. You've finished another episode of the Well with Cannabis podcast and are one step closer to discovering how you too can live well with cannabis. Thank you for listening in today. We hope this episode has been a helpful and informative one. Please visit emilykylenutrition.com for more information on today's show notes, guest information, recipes, and other resources. If you want more support and encouragement on your cannabis journey, please consider joining the private Well with Cannabis community. In this group, you can connect with like-minded individuals focused on improving their health and wellness through cannabis. Join the group today to continue your journey of wellness together at emilykylenutrition.com.